Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Uncuckables for another week. Of course, I'm Tim Wilms, editor of the Unshackled here in Melbourne. My regular co-host, David Hiscox, also in Melbourne from the XYZ.
Hello, Tim. Always a pleasure to be here.
There you go.
And we've got returning Logan Spalding, also in Melbourne, although you're inside this time. I assume that you're not in your car, so you don't have to hear one of those awful drones hovering above you.
I'm inside for the sole reason that I don't get shot by Andrews and his goons.
What we should call it, the Dan drones.
Dan drones? Yeah, we could go with that.
Dan droids.
And we've got returning for the second week in a row, James Fox Higgins, director of Rational Rise TV, and you've got some exciting updates about the future of both RRTV and Champions of the Light.
I do indeed. It's good to be back, Tim, and always a pleasure to hang with you gentlemen. And I'm terribly sorry that you're all in Melbourne. It's a real tragedy, but you know, I'm not, so life's good.
Hey, it's getting worse in all the other states, and well, Australia doesn't really exist anymore because all the state borders are shut. So much for Section 92 of the Constitution.
Well, absolutely. Our freedom of movement is certainly eroded to nothing on a whim. And it's interesting the amount of whim that the government can run the whole country on now once they declare emergency. You know, just by putting emergency before the word act, they can do some pretty astonishing things, and very quickly without any consent from the people. So we're in deeply troubled times, my friends.
Are we getting balkanized by any chance?
Looks like it. And as we've said before, our only hope is a madman and a fat man in Clive Palmer.
Chaos bomb.
Mm. Oh yes, please talk about Rational Rise TV, James.
Great. Well, I mean, it's getting very, very close to the mass migration. We're about to take everyone from our existing Rationalised TV platform over to the new and newly branded RRTV. We're just simplifying and taking some letters out and making it streamlined. But we've built a new integrated, totally custom built platform from lots of different parts. I've been at this for months now. It's been a really steep learning curve, but I've been working with some excellent people who know a lot more than me, and we've put together a new video on demand platform that we're in control of, with a video streaming and video on demand server that we're in control of. We're going to be streaming directly to our own server on our own website and our championsofthelight.com social network, which has really grown since it began, without any advertising, mind you, just purely word of mouth and from people watching our various shows. We're now moving that to the same site. So we're going to have a fully integrated social media site with video on demand. And it's going to be a lot of fun because the social media site is also under my control. So I've already gamified it, made myself the Magister of the Magister Populi, and the master of the people there, and given ranks and shields and badges, and people can achieve things as they interact. It's going to be a lot of fun, and the most important thing is that it's anti-fragile. It's really robust, and it's under our control. So, you know, with all the changes that are happening to these Silicon Valley platforms as they become more and more hostile to people like us, and also as the laws change and, you know, they gradually push us all into a corner, I'm trying to create something here for our tribe and for our people who are interested, you know, that's going to last, and where we can basically, you know, keep the assholes out and just make it our own little private happy space.
You created your own platform. That's magnificent.
You're
it's been fun.
up and coming Andrew Torber, because he's been up against the same avalanche of deplatforming, and I know that I'm the same as you. We want to get deplatform-proof our sites and video streaming as much as possible.
Well, I mean, my libertarian heart just wants to be left alone, ultimately, you know. And so if we can create, you know, systems that enable us to be in a private space, you know, it sounds gay, but we need our own safe spaces. The left have had theirs. They've pushed themselves into our mainstream organizations and into our institutions, and they've made them unsafe for us. So we need to create whatever safe spaces we can. And in the virtual realm, it's not so hard to do now. The technology exists, and there's amazing organizations out there that are really supportive of this type of thing, like Entropy, that you guys have been using for a long time. And
Yep, I'm putting the live link in both the YouTube and DLive chat because we're gaining...
Those guys are great.
Gaining a substantial following now on DLive. Of course, if you're on DLive, you can also give lemons, ice creams, and diamonds, the cryptocurrency of the platform. I noticed because I had Jason from No Work Guild on my Wilms Front program last night that Patriotic Weekly Review has now moved exclusively to DLive. They don't do YouTube at all.
Yeah, well, that's exactly where I'm aiming to head. As soon as I've got this platform up and running, I'm going to be actually removing all of my previous YouTube content from YouTube, and we'll still be continuing to use it as one of our streaming platforms, but we're going to multicast. I'm very much following Jason's lead. I've learned a lot from watching how Jason works and how he runs his operation. He runs a really tight ship. He's meticulous in his attention to detail. When I went on PWR, he sent me an agreement to sign as a guest where it laid out, all the details of the topics that we're not allowed to talk about, because if he were to allow me to talk about it, it would put him in legal jeopardy. But it was a great and very relaxed and very natural conversation. But it didn't go unnoticed for me that he has really done his homework, knows how to protect himself in every way. And if you look at the descriptions of his YouTube videos, the disclaimers that are there, the way he lays out his links, he's a very thorough man. I'm very impressed with how he runs it. So following his lead, I'm going to be getting my ass off YouTube, just using it as one of our multicast platforms, as well as our own server. But the goal is eventually to just build our own community and our own platform to the point where we can be self-sustaining and just totally avoid Silicon Valley and not have anything to do with them.
Have any of you considered starting up your own bank? All you need to do is send one son to one city, another son to another city, and Bob's your uncle, yeah?
Oh, yeah. It's just
Well, I've got a couple of sons, so, I'm training them up now, and,
there you go.
soon the world will be ours.
Hey.
Did you know that Google and YouTube, they're asking us for our support because they're extremely worried about the new government regulation? Well, federal government acting on behalf of the mainstream legacy media, who are a bit salty that all the ad revenue is going over to Google and Facebook. So I'm sure this has popped up whenever you've gone to Google or YouTube. We need to let you...
So how are we supposed to feel when our enemy is fighting another one of our enemies? What do we do? Do we just stand back and let them tear each other apart?
Yes.
It's like the expression, the left eat their own. Now the globalists are eating their own.
Well, let it happen. I mean, this is the thing is, if there are still people out there who are wholly dependent on YouTube for their business, for their income, for, their platform, they're real fools, and they're so far behind the curve that they deserve to lose whatever freedoms they're about to lose if Google do begin to come under control. We've got to stop relying upon these mega Silicon Valley satanic corporations that absolutely have, at the very core of their business culture, and even their stipulated terms and conditions, they are anti-white. They hate us. Yeah. They are the enemy, and we have to rely upon them because they have had such a massive, unnatural subsidy from the American government. They run, like YouTube might make money, but there are a lot of, actually maybe YouTube doesn't make money. Google makes money, but YouTube doesn't. It runs at a loss as far as I know. So many of these mega corporations in Silicon Valley run at a loss, and they're subsidized by the government. And, they have the cutting edge technical infrastructure to deliver streaming services to us. We take it for granted because
they've got that technology from the government too.
That's right. That's right. So it actually belongs to the people, and hopefully it's only a matter of time before they get nationalized and become the property of the American people. But until then, they're the enemy of the people, and it's sad that we have to rely on them to the degree that we do. But I don't care if they crash and burn, and I'm almost ready. My ark is almost built. I'm ready for the flood. So I'll be making some big announcements about that over the next few days, and anyone who follows me will be able to see when we go live, and they can come and join us in the Ark.
Right,
So-
let's have a look at, just go through this letter. A proposed new law, the News Media Bargaining Code, would force us to provide you with a dramatically worse Google search and YouTube. Oh no, it's so good at the moment.
How could it get worse? Do they specify?
Yeah, with a dramatically worse...
Take down-
I'll keep going.
take down the
They are
search
being
bar.
quite dramatic, aren't they?
Yeah, it could lead to your data being handed over to big news businesses instead of being kept by us. Oh no. And would put the...
It's so funny how Google are trying to frame themselves as the indie guys. You know, like
Yeah.
we're the freedom independent corporation.
This
No,
is like
don't
this
give
is like
them your information. Give us your information. It's like charities. It's like, no, don't give homeless people the money. Give it to us, and we'll make sure they get it.
Yeah, how about fuck you all?
it's like the split between the Soviet Union and communist China, or maybe between, I don't know, Eritrea and Ethiopia. You're asking us to care.
Stalin and Tito in Yugoslavia.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's just
It would
joke.
put the free services you use at risk. And this is what we're going to get into. We're being offered a free path to freedom.
Freedom isn't free. It's got a hefty fucking fee.
And it's basically, it goes here saying that it'll force us to favor the big news media outlets over other content, like they don't do that already.
Oh wow, that's gaslighting 101 there, right there. Yeah, like they've openly come out and said, yeah, we're favoring, was it trusted sources?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the ACCC, which is overseeing this voluntary code, federal government agency, responded, said it contains misinformation about the draft code. Google promoting misinformation. I've never heard such a thing.
They should demote themselves.
Yeah. Google will not be required to charge Australians for the use of its free services. Google will not be required to share any additional user data with Australian news businesses. Draft code will allow news businesses to negotiate for fair payment for their journalist work that is included on Google News. This will address a significant bargaining power imbalance. A healthy news media sector is essential to a well-functioning democracy.
DuckDuckGo and DLive. If you're still dependent on Google, you deserve it.
Logan, what were you going to say?
Well, can't remember now. Thanks,
Okay.
Tim.
Oh, you go, Dave.
One of the things I've learned from David Hilton is just to think of the globalists. Don't think of them as a united entity. There are different factions of globalists. So it is actually quite beautiful when they sort of fight against each other. It reminds me of how it's been beautiful to watch Mark Zuckerberg have to squirm at times under fire from Democrats who aren't very happy with him for even allowing some right-wing people to be even allowed on his platform. Yeah, they have puppets.
Just got to mention that he's Jewish, right, Dave?
Yes,
illegal on
It's part of
Facebook
the
now.
contract.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and,
you're saying, Logan?
and that he has a Chinese wife as well.
I'm guessing this is an indication of the trash taking itself out in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the thing that they do. It's, one of the things that sort of I take a lot of Schadenfreude from is the fact that so many NKVD heads of the NKVD were themselves like essentially murdered by the NKVD. Like there was one guy who apparently like he was put in the room where they would usually do their political executions, and he just started begging for his life because he knew what was happening to him. It's as we all know, it's a feature of the left.
Well, it's also a feature of all purity spirals, isn't it? And if there's one thing that we see on, I guess it's on the right as well, but not quite so savagely. But the purity spiral is it leads to these sort of internal investigations and this constant paranoia and the snitches dobbing on each other. And yeah, I mean any time you've got a government that is basically elevating the state to godhood instead of Jesus Christ, you're going to end up with, people killing each other.
We've got a poll on entropy, which is, I'll read it out its entirety. The coronavirus vaccine offers you complete freedom. Will you open your arms out to it? Because you can have your old life back. All you've got to do is take this free. It'll be as mandatory as possible, were the words of Scott Morrison. Though then he said it wouldn't be mandatory, but strongly encouraged. So mandatory as possible without being mandatory. If you
Do you remember
people naturally got very worried when he said it's going to be mandatory and 95% in his speech. People naturally started going, what, are you going to come to my house and force me down and forcibly inject me and my children? And that's obviously a very understandable fear when they start saying words like mandatory. And so he backpedals and comes back, of course, we can't force you to take the injection, but we're just going to encourage it highly. And how, Tim, do you suppose they're going to encourage it?
Well, they're just going to emulate the no jab, no play policy that is for parents of children who don't get vaccinated, and just apply it to adults as well.
Do you know what this reminds me of? So if anyone remembers the, I don't know if anyone's raised religiously or not, but the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, if that's how you say the last guy's name, about how they said that, they could be set free or whatever. They won't be thrown into the fire pit if they just do an act of worship to the idol or the statue or something, right? And the other story reminds me of is when Satan confronted Jesus and basically offered him all the kingdoms of the world if you just do one act of worship. So this is basically the same situation. So you can have all your freedom back if you just
submit,
get the needle.
Yeah, and the mark of the beast, which will let you engage in financial transactions.
Well, this is the thing: is that it's going to begin with, obviously, it's very easy for them to say, well, we can't give you childcare support payments, and we can't let you go to childcare centres, and we can't let you go to nursing homes, and we're going to do all of these things because you're at risk if you're not vaccinated. So they're going to begin with the stuff that they can manage with their existing internal bureaucracies around, Centrelink and MyGov. But what about when they want to start policing our ability to go out to the local cafe and that sort of thing?
There's already...
They're going to have to... Hang on, Tim. I do want to hear it, but, they'll begin to implement more and more measures to track our movements. They've got the app that's not mandatory yet, but it will come factory installed with every new iPhone from next year, I'm sure. And they're going to, they've got all these other things. It's going to lead to this ID 2020 Microsoft thing, which is a chip in the hand. And I mean, I will actually rejoice if it gets that far, because at least then I know that we're in the last 7 years. I don't actually believe that we are that close to end times, but at least if we get to that point where they start saying, you cannot go and get a cup of coffee or shop at Coles unless you have the chip in your hand, at least we know the end is nigh then, and it's all going to be over soon.
It's not going to be as explicit and obvious as a chip in the hand, but they've
already invented it, Tim, and they're trying. ID 2020, they're trying to push it.
The COVID Safe app, which actually has hardly tracked any coronavirus contacts. Scott Morrison initially said that he'd look at making it mandatory, even though not every Australian has a smartphone. He backtracked from that afterwards, but you'll remember us Melburnians, if we wanted to go to the local cafe, pub or restaurant, you had to sign in with a name and number for contact tracing purposes. And New Zealand, with Auckland now at level 3 lockdown and the rest of the nation in level 2, the High Court of New Zealand actually they ruled this week that the first level 4 lockdown was actually unlawful, which is why Jacinta Ardern in the meantime passed the Enabling Act, which allows her to... But New Zealand has got the QR code, so when you go into the local supermarket or wherever, I know that a few supermarkets here are voluntarily trialing their own QR code checking in system. It'll be that you can't enter a premises unless you get your phone out and click the QR code. So you're tracked everywhere, but it's purely to keep you safe from this wildly infectious, deadly, crippling virus.
Yeah, that's Logan.
So in respect to Jacinda Ardern and the whole stage, what they call it, stage 4, they call it
alert level 4. They have alert level system.
So level 4, right? So in response to that, so basically it was 9 days of illegal lockdown. So I want to know, right, now that the government's been caught with their pants down, breaking their own laws, right, will the High Court try this as a violation of the Bill of Rights Act for in New Zealand, or will they just try and sweep it under the carpet and go, well, it was just 9 days. I mean, they won't do it again, stuff like that. So
well,
where would they go?
If you don't mind, I'll go through what New Zealand's High Court said. The High Court said, while the measure was a necessary, reasonable and proportionate response to the pandemic at the time, the requirement was not mandated by laws and contrary to the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, the High Court said. For 9 days between March 26 and April 3, the order for people to stay at home and in their bubbles was justified but unlawful, according to the court. A law change on April 3 then made the lockdown legal. The High Court said...
Logan, what you're getting at is, do you think people are going to be allowed to ask for compensation, like business owners? Should they be allowed to ask for compensation for this?
Well, they should.
Yeah.
I reckon any kind of fines given during that time or whatever, or any revenue that would have been made and was actually lost as a result of the government and their illegal lockdown should be compensated back to them, and the fine should be waived because it was an illegal restriction. So, I mean, that's just where I sit on the thing is, like, if it's illegal and the government's done it, they should be held to a higher standard than an average citizen because they're the ones that are meant to be upholding the law, not breaking it.
Well, this is a really important point. I think generally people who are in public office should be held to a higher standard, and should be punished for lying and for cheating and for robbing us of our freedoms.
There's growing legal...
They will be punished eventually. We just have to take control again and get power back.
There's growing legal a commentary and advice that the Victorian ministers could be charged with the industrial manslaughter for all the COVID deaths, a lot of them that have occurred in Victoria's second wave. And talking about the fines for breaching the lockdown orders, going back to the fact that all our state borders are closed, Clive Palmer's High Court challenge has a very good chance of succeeding, and the border restrictions are getting even more draconian now, with a hard border occurring tomorrow between Victoria and South Australia, which means that those on Victorian border towns, they won't be able to go to school just across the border. But apparently it's okay for South Australia to invite international students back in, foreigners, but just not their fellow Australians who are in Victoria. But remember, we had Senator Slayer's mate Jared Seaby, who was arrested for crossing the Albury-Wodonga border, Victoria-New South Wales border, because he didn't have a permit, even though he goes to work there every day. If all the state border...
They're basically the same town, aren't they? Like it's like twin cities. It's one town, with a line.
Yeah. And there was a case this week where a Tweed Heads couple weren't allowed to see their newborn baby because it was in hospital in the Gold Coast.
Are you fucking kidding me? Really?
Yeah, that's true.
When was that? Because at the moment, I know that region has the whole border between New South Wales and Queensland has this bubble. This. No,
the bureaucrats said that they couldn't see their newborn baby.
Yeah.
Did they? How do they justify that under the current rulings, though? Because I know that there's freedom of movement.
Well, this is the thing. The bureaucrats, they just they just interpret the decrees themselves. There was one, apparently a Victorian who wanted to move their sheep into New South Wales was told, no, you can't cross the border with a truck, but you can fly your sheep into New South Wales.
these are the morons
So-
who run our governments. It's amazing.
It's the reason why bureaucratic tyranny is the worst, because what you've got examples of here then are bureaucrats who A, don't know what they're doing, but B, I think more importantly, they're afraid to make the wrong decision, aren't they? They're afraid to actually take initiative and say, look, let's use some common sense, because they're afraid that they're actually going to get in trouble.
And of
So what does
course,
that say?
they rule by the letter of the law and not the
Yeah.
spirit of the law. And that is precisely what Jesus came to point out to the Pharisees, you know, is that the rule of the letter of the law is in fact a satanic inversion of the law, and that it's the spirit of the law that counts. And if you're ruling by the letter, all you have to do is add all these funky new letters and you can rule it however you want. And, you know, speaking of South Australia, I've been looking at the legislation there because some stuff's come up on social media, and it's absolutely crazy what they're trying to push there and what they've actually already got into their Emergency Act. In the COVID-19 Emergency Response Act 2020, under Section 25A, removal of children, check this out. Subsection 1, without derogating from Section 25, an authorised officer may, for the purpose of ensuring compliance with any direction under that section, remove a child from any premises, place, vehicle or vessel to a place of residence of the child or to a hospital or quarantine facility as the authorised officer thinks fit, and may, in doing so, use such force as is reasonably necessary.
Another thing we predicted then, we predicted they would come for your children. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean the authorized officer is a bureaucrat, and they're being given in legal, like this is already in the legislation in South Australia. They're being given the right to forcibly remove your children from school if they're suspected to be unwell, which it could be a cold. You know,
oh no, everything is coronavirus now. That's what our chief health officer said, Dr. Brett Sutton, that if you've got cold or flu-like symptoms, it's probably coronavirus now. And even if you die from other causes as well, if you've got COVID at the time, you'll be recorded as a COVID death. He admitted that.
That's right. So with that much scope for interpretation of symptoms, they're giving bureaucrats the right to forcibly remove your children and not necessarily take them back to their house, but take them to a quarantine facility. Now, if you're going by the letter of that law, and you happen to have, you know, Soviet-style political leanings, it's not very hard to imagine people in a year or so setting up gulags for children and removing them from your care.
Well, they're already sending people in New Zealand to facilities, aren't they? To quarantine facilities.
Yeah, virus protection camps, you could call them.
Yeah.
Apparently,
prison camps.
Yeah, apparently they're not mandatory now. They're just strongly encouraged.
And now, this is the thing, isn't it? Like, you get so much as a sniffle or a tickle in the throat, you have to get into the system. You have to go take a coronavirus test. There might be a bureaucratic bungle. You have to go take a coronavirus test. There's no way of getting out of it. And it's like the coronavirus test. It's a nasty thing too. It makes you gag. It's like
I've heard of people who've still got nose tingling and sensitivities in their nose weeks after.
Yeah.
I had the test.
Yeah.
It sucks. It really sucks. Because I went to the hospital and they were going to do the test on me, right? She said, I'm going to go and get the equipment to have the test. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Let's do that. So she goes and I'm just like, okay, this mustn't be too hard. And then she's like, all right, well, here's the test kit and I've got to shove this to the back of your nose to get an example. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I've got to shove this to the back of your nose to get a sample. And I'm just like, you got to put that where? Excuse me, but no, thank you. And she's like, I thought I'd just give it a go anyways. So she goes and does it, and I'm just like, oh, crap. And so driving home, I ended up with a runny nose.
Do they give you Novocaine first?
Nothing of the sort. It was just, here,
Just
take a stick in your nose.
Yeah, I had a what's the endoscopy is it called, where they stick a camera up your nose to look at your throat. When I was looking at some nodules I had on my vocal cords some years ago, and at least I got a Novocaine spray up the nostrils first, so everything went numb. But I'm not going to submit to any such test. They will have to spray me down. I will not submit to any such test. I don't even believe in the efficacy of the test. I think it's bullshit, and I would never.
Well, that's the thing.
It.
Like, yeah.
A test for the antibodies, and they had to come up with the most invasive bodily test possible. But now Dan Andrews has added a condition that, hey, if we don't get 20,000 coronavirus tests every day, we don't know how much virus is in the community, and we can't be confident to lift the lockdowns.
They don't know anyway. There's no way to know.
Although
Andrew's time is running out. You've got until September the 13th. Come on.
Yes, because that's when his 6 months maximum of the state of emergency expires. And there were reports that he's consulting with the Solicitor General about proposing legislation to the Victorian Parliament to amend the Public Health and Wellbeing Act so the state of emergency can just be extended indefinitely. So we could be...
This is the madness of the kind of statism we live under now, is that they can just get together in their little cabal and have a little conversation that doesn't involve anyone from the real world, and they can scribble a few things down on a bit of paper, then they can wave it in the air and go, this magic bit of paper says we have the right to violently oppress your freedoms and drag you in for forcible injection of a pipe up your nose or a needle in your arm, right? Just because they say it's legal doesn't mean it's right. Just because they put it on paper doesn't make it true. These are professional lawyers, and
slavery was legal at one point, wasn't it?
So if they've only got till the 13th of September, then I'd just say to the people of Victoria, remember the 12th of September. People.
Yeah, that's it. Well, there are two factors here that we've covered over the last half hour, which I find very, very interesting. The first factor is that Scott Morrison had to back off his line that the vaccine would be as mandatory as possible. That caused a massive backlash. And the second factor is that one that we've just mentioned, the fact that Daniel Andrews has said, look, we actually need to get more Victorians testing. So what we're talking about here is the behaviour of the masses. Like, those two factors can be used to analyse the behaviour of the masses, because when the lockdowns first got ramped up here in Victoria, there was actually a massive influx of people getting the tests. Like, people were queuing at supermarkets and all that sort of stuff. But now that's dropped off. So what this is telling everybody is that there are a lot of people who are either skeptical of getting the test or are scared of getting the test or just don't care. And the back down from Scott Morrison is telling us that there are a lot of people who are opposed to being told that they have to get the vaccination. So the media is trying to portray the deniers, the anti-vaxxers, the COVID-idiots as just a tiny, crazy minority. But what this is showing is that there's actually a very large, this our usual phrase, of a big silent majority. And it's
less silent by the day, thankfully.
Yeah, and we've got to activate them.
Yeah, and I'm seeing on social media and in my email inbox, people who are real lefties who I haven't really had any contact with or talked politics with for years. They're really getting on board. So this is actually going to be one area where we can unite with the left and just go, look, we may not agree on what to do afterwards, but we can agree that this whole campaign is bullshit and we need to fight it. So that's the positive.
Shall we play what our Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Australia, Dr. Nick Coatesworth, said about the possible no jab, no pay policy. Now, Dr. Nick, as I just refer to him, he's the...
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, the most, way to put it, photogenic of the chief medical officers. So they used him for the COVID safe app as the spokesman, basically
making impressions sexy.
Yeah. So I'll just play what he said.
Have absolutely no doubt about that, but there will be strong. I suspect the majority of Australians will get vaccinated, and there will be a strong public view that those who choose not to get vaccinated need to there needs to be some sort of incentive stick, perhaps, through the current programs, including No Jab, No Pay, to make that happen. So I think that is a very reasonable interpretation of what the PM had to say today. Again, looking at specific things like not being able to go into restaurants, not being able to travel internationally, not.
So he ummed and ahed a bit there, Dr. Nick, but he eventually
Even I
spat it
speak
out.
better than this guy. Yeah, they chose him for his looks. Come on.
Dr. Dick, huh? No.
Sorry, unfortunately, because of my setup, I couldn't. All I could hear was Tim snickering, which was amusing in itself. But if you could just quickly give me the nutshell of what he said, that would help.
But basically, he said that they're going to need to use incentives such as No Jab, No Pay, and
Oh,
then the
it's
rest
stick.
of it was literally him.
Yeah.
The stick. Yeah, and so literally the rest of it was him just umming and ahhing. It was
Did
like
he
me on my
say
first
the
live
stick?
stream.
He said the stick.
stick. Yeah, he said stick.
Wow, that's a threat of violence.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's so weird. It's, you know those it's like you don't have to get it, right? But if you don't get it, we're going to ruin
We're
your
gonna
chance
beat
of
you.
survival.
Yeah, that's what he said, a
Yeah.
stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
We
They're liars.
have got a super chat here on Entropy from an account that says it's Peter Grace for $3 US. It says no jab, no play. That is why I'm on heroin. So thank you for that super chat, whoever this account is.
My greatest fan. Yeah.
Number one's fan he is.
Yeah, continue. Where were we?
Oh, we'll go back to Victoria, where did you know that we had 2,300 recoveries from the coronavirus today? So we've gone from around about 7,200 active cases to 4,800 just in a day, and we only had 240 new cases today and 13 new deaths. And the media release from the chief health officer said that more people are likely to recover in the coming days. So it's based on that admission, it is going to continuing to go down. And also another interesting thing that Dr. Brett Sutton said, that if you're asymptomatic and have got the coronavirus, the test won't pick that up.
Right. So, but isn't the test designed to detect the antibodies that show that you've been resisting the coronavirus? And if that's the case, wouldn't it be true that people who have recovered, if they were to go and get the test, it would still show positive?
Yes. Which is why there was that guy, Matty played a clip on his solo live stream on Sunday night of a guy who was saying that his grandfather, who had been on palliative care, I think for weeks, and he had cancer, he did have coronavirus in his system at some point, but he died. He was old. He was in literally in palliative care for cancer.
It was a tumor. It was not coronavirus.
Yes, and then the doctor was trying to pressure his family into listing the primary cause of death as coronavirus.
Wow. Now I've heard rumors that some of them get paid to do that as well. There are some kind
Yeah,
of
I've heard that as well. I haven't seen any evidence of that. We've also received...
But people do follow financial incentives,
Yes.
and this is why we have to be very careful of the cult of scientism, because scientists put their finger on the scale when they need to get the money that they're promised.
Which is
They do.
why Daniel Andrews offered, well, it was originally $300 if you got a COVID test and didn't have sick pay to self-isolate. Then it was up to $450 as well. So he bumped it up by a third. We have got an ice cream donated to us on D-Live from Tom V. He has said...
I'm going to fight over who gets the ice cream.
Yeah. COVID credit scheme. They must have started the HCQ then.
HCQ?
Is he talking about hydroxychloroquine? Is that the initial for it?
Yeah.
Which, even though this anti-malaria drug, which apparently Dr. Fauci said in 2005 can be treated for those with the coronavirus, because remember, this is COVID-19. There's been other strands of the coronavirus. It's a drug that's been around for 50 years, but Scott Morrison, he's signed a deal to get this Oxford vaccine administered to Australians, which still hasn't passed stage 3 clinical trials, and he has said himself, we still don't know whether it'll work, what dosage will be required, how regularly it'll need to be administered.
So he's signed a blank check.
Yeah, he's basically signed us up to an experimental drug.
And it's also they've limited the liability of the drug company, right? So that you can't sue them if there are any side effects.
Yeah. But hydroxychloroquine is banned. It's listed as a poison in Victoria, also banned in Queensland as well.
Yes, and I'm just looking at the legislation here in Queensland, which says you are not allowed to take. It firstly says, it gives all of these justifications that if you need it for anything other than COVID-19, then a registered medical practitioner can prescribe it. But it doesn't just say that the doctors aren't allowed to prescribe it for COVID-19, but it says that you as a citizen are not allowed to take it as a preventative measure for COVID-19. You can take it for other things, but you can't take it for that. And if you do, you'll get an on-the-spot fine of $1,300 or a court-imposed penalty of up to $13,000 or 6 months in jail.
So they mandate. So they ban the cure and they mandate an untested poison.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So did you see that one? I think I saw it earlier. At some point, experts are scared. This was a while back, but I saw one thing one time. So basically, experts are scared or worried that the coronavirus might disappear before a vaccine is made. Don't you want it to go, or do you just want it to stick around?
Well, it's the boogeyman, and the boogeyman might come back, I guess.
That is an interesting one, because the primary example of how vaccines have worked is polio. But I've seen it made the case that by the time that the vaccine for polio actually came in, the rate of polio was actually in decline anyway. That's something I want to double check, but that's been made, and that case has been made for quite a lot of diseases that the vaccine has come in sort of at the tail end anyway.
Well, you look at Sweden's coronavirus curve; they never shut down and have reached herd immunity. I've previously said that New York and Italy, through government incompetence, reached herd immunity. And Florida at the moment, which its curve has peaked, though Governor Ron DeSantis, he refused to shut down again. Their curve is going down as well. Florida certainly seems to be the place to be because, well, all the cool Americans, residents of Florida, it seems, such as Gavin McInnes, Jacob Wall, Milo, Breakback Patriot, DC Drano, and Laura Loomer, who won the Republican primary for the 21st district, which takes in West Palm Beach, where Donald Trump's primary residence now, the Mar-a-Lago resort. And that certainly got a lot of the mainstream media triggered, that this far-right provocateur, who's been banned from everything. She's even been banned from Uber and Comcast Communications, won a Republican primary.
Well, it's an important precedent, I guess, because what it shows is that, we can actually win public offices from internet followings, and even fringe internet followings that have been banned from the mainstream platforms. We can now is actually a really good time for many of us to start thinking about either campaigning or getting behind candidates who will campaign, who you may have thought would never have had a chance, but the people are so desperate, and rightly so, for change, that they're going to look to places that they never thought they would. So I think it's whatever you think of Laura Loomer, I think it's a positive because it just shows that the mainstream media and the establishment, political world, they're losing their grip on their own democracies.
Maybe we'll get
And she would...
yeah, women shouldn't be allowed in politics, but then again, nobody should be allowed to vote. But given that's the system that we're in, on that thing that you just said, then James, the local elections coming up here in Australia actually, for once, that could actually be crucial. Tim, I know that's like supposed to be further on.
Oh, it's okay. We always chop and change here.
Yeah, but it is an interesting one because, like, if you think of the fact that the left have found a way to march through the institutions, and one of the things that they did was they got like lunatic Greens, like those easy seats on the local council elections, and then they started doing things that councils were never supposed to do. Like, they were supposed to just pick up your garbage, and now they have diversity policies. We can do the same thing. Like, now's
the left have had their
get somewhere.
The left have had their sort of 70 odd years of the slow march, which has put them in the position they're in. And maybe now with all of this chaos, there's an opportunity for the right to do something of a blitzkrieg through the institutions.
Well,
absolutely.
An interesting confirmation this week, despite the state of lockdown limbo that we're in Victoria, Daniel Andrews confirmed that local government elections in Victoria will go ahead
James,
in October.
Touche. Please continue.
So that took a moment to sink in, did it, Dave?
No, it's sunk in, but I was just like...
That's the beauty of the blitzkrieg, mate, is, you don't notice it happen until it's over.
Yeah. You don't realise it's happened until you're stuck in a pincer movement. Yeah.
So, since you mentioned the infiltration by Greens and Socialists into local government, and we are all too familiar with those inner city Melbourne councils, Yarra, Moreland, Darebin, with their Green left socialist councillors cancelling Australia Day. So this,
I visited Moreland a couple of times.
Yeah, was that the one where the mayor went off at Neil and grabbed him?
Yeah. No, I was doing the whole time. I was over at this table, and I decided I'll just grab a jug of water and pour myself a glass and look at everyone on the other side of the glass window staring at me. So I'm just going to drink this water because why not? It's kind of funny. But yeah.
Because the mayor, she went off at Neil. She's like, get out.
Yeah.
I know somebody who used to work for the Socialist Republic of Moreland, and that's literally what he referred to it as, the Socialist Republic of Moreland. Like they openly say it.
So this is going to be the most important Victorian local government election in our lifetime, and it's a mail-in election. It always has been. And what they do is the Electoral Commission, they send you voting package in the mail, and it has all the candidates there and a blurb of what they're about. Don't believe their BS blurb. Look them up and see where they stand politically, because the nice sounding ones can turn out to be the most horrible big government statists who are going to raise your rates to implement their pet causes, which have nothing to do with the functions of local government.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there, Tim, didn't you? Like, that's what they do. They say nice sounding things. You've got to listen between the lines.
It's so funny with the Australian Electoral Commission, right? They are meant to be neutral. They're not meant to be on any side. They're just there to count votes and take care of the election process, right? But it's pretty clear to see where they sit politically.
Oh, yes.
I haven't seen that. Can you elucidate a little, Logan?
What did you say? Sorry, I'm eating.
That's right. Can you expand on that?
There's this thing called scrutineering. Takes place after the elections and that kind of stuff. I've heard people, come out of there because they've been scrutineering. And what you do is you pretty much stand there and you look at volunteers of the AEC putting things in ballot boxes or whatever, like counting the votes kind of stuff. And as a scrutineer, you're not allowed to touch anything. You can't even touch a pencil if it falls on the ground, right? You can just point to it and someone from the AEC will come and get it. but I've heard some stories, and they could just be stories, don't quote me on it, but of the AEC kind of, not not putting it in the right boxes by mistake or whatever. Like they might see something that's just so quick, it might go like, oh yeah, that kind of stuff, right? So
well, why wouldn't they? And I spoke to a guy a few years ago at one of the libertarian events that Tim and I were both at, actually, and he, I won't name him, he was, I think, a former employee of the AEC, and he told me some stories quietly that, were indicative of a great deal of corruption in those offices, a great deal of political corruption. So, there are no neutral bodies. We all have a dog in this fight, and now is the time to actually get behind the people who are on our side and stop pretending that that anyone is going to be neutral or truthful in the political world. We are so polarized now. It's a war. It's a culture war, and it's getting hotter and hotter.
Just one more story on the AEC. So they like to do a lot of electoral redistributions, and these redistributions generally favour the Labor Party. The best example of that, and I'm not standing up for John Howard because he took away our guns and he presented himself as being sort of anti-immigration, yet he used like the stop the boats as a way to like ramp up legal immigration. But he lost his seat in the 2007 election to Maxime McHugh, and that was primarily because of an electoral redistribution. So like this is the AEC redistributing the seat in which the Prime Minister sits. Like you can't get a better example of political bias than that.
Well, you have a look at the last federal redistribution in Victoria. It made the marginal seats of Corangamite and Dunkley, which were held by Liberals, made them notionally Labor, and so the Labor candidates easily won those at the election. And then a new seat of Fraser was created in the middle of Western Melbourne, named after former Liberal Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser, and was already and based on the margins, it was a really safe seat for the Labor Party. So they essentially got a net gain through redistributions of 3 seats. But Scott Morrison still won the election.
Cheeky buggers.
Yeah.
So do you reckon I should run for my local government area? I'm just trying to think of like what my policy is like do I turn the dial up to 10 or like just keep it around 3?
Yeah, well, let's bring it, Dave. You should run, but you definitely. I mean, this is the thing is, we have to whether we're running for politics or not, we have to be strengthening our relationships with our immediate neighbours and our immediate community. And if you need to find who your allies are directly around you, just for the sake of survival with what's ahead, you just need to know who your bros are. And then beyond that, if you wanted to run for office, you need to know who your supporters are in your local area. And it's the danger of our sort of online life that we've always had because we've been political dissidents, but now everyone is forced into this online-based life. But the democratic system is not online-based, and it's not geographically amorphous like our culture is. It is, local. And I think maybe that's something that could be addressed in the future, but it has to be, you have to pay attention to it. If you want to succeed in survival or the taking back of power, you have to have local support. So get out there in any way you can and start meeting your neighbors. And this is part of why they're preventing us from getting out to meet our neighbors, is because they can conquer when they divide us. So, whatever you can do, if you have to send carrier pigeons one apartment building to the next, if you have to throw paper planes out your window and start campaigning that way, reach out to your neighbours.
Dave, they might try and dig up some dirt on you during the campaign. Oh wait, they've already been doing that for like 5 years.
Yeah, it's all out in the open. It's the beauty of having it.
Like you want to see all the horrible things I've ever said, just read my blog.
Yeah, just go to the XYZ.
So
the thing is that the mainstream media, if you ran, Dave, the ABC would just be like, "This guy said that women shouldn't be in politics," and they'll just amplify your message, and
I'll be like, "That's
more people waking up to this stuff."
So just refresh the page. And I know this is a little bit off topic, but he says, so it's by 9 News, AI to spy on neighbourhood recycling in Australian first. So apparently there's this council, I think it's Canterbury Bankstown Council in Sydney, is a first in the country to fit its recycling collection fleet with artificial intelligence. So they want to find rubbish in amongst where the recycling should be.
So they've invented Wall-E. Finally, we have Wall-E.
On rubbish.
It all ends up in the sea just off China anyway.
Don't forget there were plans or a proposal for us in Victoria to have 4 garbage bins. We talked about that on a previous episode of the Uncuckables, because there's heaps of bins that you can have, and they can be all the colors of the rainbow. You can have one for fruit and veg disposal, paper. They have a separate one for plastic and glass. The possibilities are endless.
So what do you put in the bin that's the whole rainbow color?
No, each bin represents a different color of the rainbow.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Maybe the purple one. That's the safe sex disposal bin.
I mean, that's kind of funny though, because it's they're like, you know what, we're going to include the LGBT whatever community in here by likening their flag to a set of bins.
Well, the Victorian government on the Department of Health and Human Services website, they now include the black and poo brown stripes in the rainbow flag. So,
yeah, like I said last time, what is being black is sexuality.
Yes, because apparently black people can be LGBT too. Which I thought was already a given.
On the rainbow flag, out of curiosity, I've never really paid much. Is there a white strip on the rainbow flag?
No, there's not.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for that.
I suppose you'll have to be hetero then.
Yeah, we have got another super chat here on Entropy from the Peter Grace account for $3. I think whoever this is, there's so many Peter Grace accounts. He's sort of like Agent Smith in the Matrix now, just multiplying. I think this person is sending the $3 super chat because it rhymes with we. It says, "I'm watching you boys, especially you, Timmy. Dan, I pissed my pants." Oh, thanks again for the $3 super chat. It does tend to interrupt the flow of the episode, but hey,
maybe you could have a policy of reading all Peter related super chats at the end of the show rather than in the middle. Yeah, I mean, we made him very famous. Maybe Uncuckables should change its name to the Peter Grace Fan Club.
Well, it's more just the audience. They're fans of him, it seems,
or one of them at least.
All right, let's go back to voting, because as you've repeatedly said tonight, Dave, women...
Nobody should be allowed to vote, yeah.
Oh, no, well, women shouldn't be in politics and women shouldn't be able to vote. And James, I know that you are
I'm for equal suffrage, Tim. Nobody should be allowed to vote.
Yeah, I'm a Dave on that. But if we have to knock out one gender first, it's obvious which one should go.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So Donald Trump announced that he was going to pardon somebody this week, and everyone got excited. Is it going to be Julian Assange or Edward Snowden? But no, it was Susan B. Anthony, who was a suffragette in the 19th and earlier 20th century.
You mean terrorist? Who
was fined for illegally voting, and she's seen as the mother of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which gave women the vote. And Trump chose this time to give her a posthumous pardon because it's the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment.
Did you say posthumous or posthumous?
I prefer posthumous. I think that was...
Well, it was funny, but now it's not.
Yeah. The female vote is posthumous.
So she'll have it, I guess, expunged from her criminal record. 100
I'm
years
sure
later.
she's very happy about that from her coffin.
Though somebody pointed out that how do you know Susan B. Anthony would accept the pardon? You've pardoned her without her consent. You've rape pardoned her.
That's a good spin. I like that.
There's a video on Twitter of a black woman academic from the US with blue hair. And she's talking about how Susan B. Anthony she worked with white supremacists, and she betrayed black female voters. And so basically she's not intersexual enough. And so she said, like, she was talking, apparently, like, on that day that the amendment was passed, like, all these women, like, go to her grave and they put "I voted" stickers on her grave. And so she suggested all these other black activists from the 1800s who people should put those stickers on instead. I love it. The left are already trying to cancel her.
Yeah, we all know that, democracy was invented in Africa as well.
Absolutely. It doesn't work, so probably.
And it's not very well known these days, but to students of history such as myself, those who pushed for the 19th Amendment, they're the women, the female suffragettes. They were also behind the 18th Amendment as well, the women's temperance movement, which prohibited alcohol, which in the United States, which obviously prohibition turned out to be a complete disaster.
Yeah.
So
hey, which year was America granted the did America grant women the right to vote?
1920. It's the 100th anniversary. I said.
That's right. Yeah. I'm just trying to get that date down, just so somebody doesn't fact check me again.
And look, I mean, we don't have to go right into it, but we have before, I think, on this show and certainly on mine, and I know Dave's gotten into it, but let's face it, as far as the most significant events in the history of democracy that have led us down this dark path, that event in 1920 was chief among them.
We've seen the red state blue state comparison, where if only men voted in 2016 and if only women voted in 2016,
exactly.
It's basically the reason why we have left wing politics.
And it's not because it's not to demonize women in any way or say that women are bad. It's just that there are different incentives en masse that are responded to, and the ballot has always been in lieu of the bullet. And politics is a proxy for war, or it's war by other means, as it's been often said. So, it's not really a battlefield that women can appropriately be on, except for the absolutely exceptional among them, like my wife.
Don't forget the electoral college map broken down into different demographics.
Yes, that too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because even in 2016, white women voted for Trump by majority.
Yeah, and if you look at married white women as well, it's
Dickie is Dan.
Yeah, I mean, as we know, not all women are equal, and of course, there are demographic chunks that are definitely our folks, that are women who are right side, just as there are men who are absolutely our enemies. So it's always dangerous to oversimplify things, but I think that the reason why I say that the granting of suffrage to women was the most significant event in this spiral is because it was through bringing that amount of new political weight into the ring that could be manipulated in its own way, just as men can be manipulated, but women can be manipulated in different ways. And they have masterfully manipulated women over the last 100 years in the West to vote for the wrong reasons. And the women today who are now railing against the left and railing against Marxism, they're absolute champions, and we need them. But I mean, this is why I come back to Dave's blunt initial statement: no one should vote. Democracy is a total failure and a total disaster, and it has to end as soon as possible. But until then, we have to break it down in chunks.
Have you heard that Donald Trump has spoken out against Goodyear tires because they've banned MAGA hats in workplaces. In fact, they've banned their employees to refrain from workplace expressions involving political campaigns and forms of advocacy that fall outside the scope of racial justice and equality issues.
Which is funny because, you know, by doing that, they've weighed in on a political issue, and now the president is basically telling everyone to boycott them. So that kind of backfired. Get work, go broke.
Yeah.
And I looked up Goodyear Tires. It was founded by a German immigrant to the United States in the 19th century.
They did well. There were some good German immigrants in Australia in the 19th century too.
We're getting through these topics quite well. Shall we move on?
Yeah,
to...
you are. You're just racing through them too.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about tires anymore.
I might rewind a bit back to the local government elections because Sam Newman has expressed interest in running for Melbourne Lord Mayor. Now, he expresses interest every time the Lord Mayor elections are on. And so he sort of turned into Trump, who considered running multiple times, but then eventually did and won. So he's just sort of hoped this time that Sam Newman, he's 74, pull the trigger, run for Lord Mayor.
He could be our saviour. He's always been very based. You know, he's not going to pull his punches. Yeah, he could be the Aussie Donald Trump. You know, he could start off as mayor and do it Boris Johnson, make the leap. It's always a possibility.
And during the first lockdown, he spoke up against the ludicrous golf ban, which no other state had banned social distance golf, and it was allowed.
Tim, we should try to get him on the Uncuckables.
Oh, his Twitter DMs are open, so those who are not banned on Twitter should reach out to him.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, let's get him on. I reckon it'd be epic.
Sorry, guys, just had to pass a little message on there.
So we'll go to the. Have you heard of the Free the Flag movement?
A little
5
bit
minutes
about
before the show, I heard about it.
Yes. We all thought, and I think a lot of Australians thought, that the Aboriginal flag was a sacred ancient symbol.
I always
Really? Who thought that?
It's a common folklore and urban myth. But
well, you know, like the idea of there being a unified Aboriginal people. That's another.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
having
is
a complex system of trade.
Yeah,
between all the tribes.
Aboriginal people are not actually a race of people because
So
Canada has Aboriginal
I heard
people.
that they're actually I heard that they're actually people who are originally like from Central Asia and they just took on the Aboriginal religion. Oh no, sorry, I'm mixing up. Please continue.
Canada has its Aboriginal people, and don't forget the Aboriginal people of Britain. They had Indigenous Peoples Day on the 9th of August. I know that several of the Indigenous British activists held up White Lives Matter signs in public places.
Yeah, it was epic.
it was.
Patriotic
Really
Weekly Review. Their optics are brilliant.
A
Absolutely
Patriotic
brilliant.
Alternative. Mark Collett and Laura Towler. They're doing such great work that they got a whole Hope Not Hate report dedicated to them, which is the SPLC, the ADL version in the UK.
Yeah.
And
you know that you've reached the masses when the media are forced to basically respond to you and basically call for you to be banned off any kind of social media and be banned from actually connecting with the people.
Patriotic Alternative also got a write-up by Unilad I saw recently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is and it was, I think the basic headline was that, you know, Patriotic Alternative demonstrates that people in Britain are getting more openly racist. And I think Laura Towler shared it and she was just like, yeah, good. Like, great, our work is going well. They just don't get it, but they don't get how they're helping.
they used to be top of the class. You know, they used to, the biggest navy. And I'm a bit biased here because I am of British descent myself, right? But I reckon it was the best empire. And all of a sudden, they're being washed out. You go over to England, it doesn't look like England. It doesn't look like a fantastic, empire ever roamed that area.
It's totally crushed, man. Like Britain is a broken country, and I mean, you look at the way things are going in the streets of London. It's Enoch Powell was absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah. But wasn't it in France where people were being like shitting on the streets or something?
That's in San Francisco.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Geez.
So the
understood it when the French done it. Like if the French was doing it, but the Americans.
I'm just going to agree with you because it's the French. Yeah.
Well, I mean, out of solidarity for what France used to be, I'll wave their national flag. You imagine the freaking guys with the muskets back then in the French army. All right, Lord, aim, surrender.
On a serious
note, racist, mate. That's racist against French.
Having been to
British.
having been to the Palace of Versailles, it is actually interesting. Like in the biggest room in Versailles, it's this massive hall, and down one side of the hallway is paintings, like big, massive, full-scale paintings of like epic battles, which the French won, and so like it's got everything from like I think the original invasion of the Franks, and then the next one is the Battle of Tours against the Moors in the 700s, and then it goes all the way up to some sort of the mid 18th century, and then like the other wall is all Napoleon. Like Napoleon has an entire wall of his victories. It's epic. It's so cool.
Yeah, I'm just the only reason I'm obviously.
But there's nothing after Napoleon for some
British descent, so we always had that on and off thing with the French.
Yeah, that's it.
So let's go back to talking about the Aboriginal Australian flag, which was actually designed by an Indigenous activist in 1971 called Harold Thomas, and he's actually copyrighted it. He won a case in the federal court. He owns the rights to the Australian Aboriginal flag, and so
you're saying it's only slightly older than the Welcome to Country ceremony?
Yes.
Didn't he actually steal that design from one of his students?
Well, there were three people who claimed that they designed it, and he was the
guys. It's a circle with a line through the middle. It ain't exactly cutting edge design.
There's nothing really.
I reckon 1,000 people have designed that. I designed it 20 times doodling on a pad. Yeah.
Make something great, would you? If you're going to make a flag, at least make it, worth looking at. Like,
I think it's it's as good as any other flag, but let's not pretend it's an amazingly complex design that people can't just
It's not like they're saying people that made the freaking Notre Dame Cathedral or whatever, Yeah. Just shapes on canvas.
So for a corporation or a business to sell and to display the Aboriginal flag, they have to they have to get permission from this Harold Thomas. So
how has this something come up now? Like I've never heard of this before.
Because
has he just started trying to rake in the cash? Is that what's going on? He's broke and he wants the money now.
I
thought this idea of ownership was like a Western idea, and
but what has really turbocharged the campaign to free the flag from copyright is for the AFL's Indigenous round, which, well, with their season relaunched, I haven't been paying attention, but they still decided to do an Indigenous round. They couldn't display the Indigenous flag because they couldn't get the rights to it.
Sucked in, that's all you can say.
I'm just amazed that an entire people let it fall through the cracks, that they don't even have the right to their own flag. That's it's kind of tragic.
What's the ethnic background of Harold Thomas? That's what I want.
You said he was Indigenous, Tim, yeah?
Yes.
He's Indigenous? All right. I was about to say, that would have been even more hilarious if he was Anglo.
Well, he's got an Anglo
he's
name.
obviously partly Anglo.
Yeah, I know that Australian Meditations, he's done his own take on the Indigenous flag. I assume because it's a new design that it doesn't infringe on the copyright, since he's put different bits of art on it.
Do you have a picture of it?
Fantastic art.
No, I don't. But I'm sure through one of his accounts in the chat, he will put the link to his YouTube video displaying it.
It does raise one of those esoteric questions that interest me, which is that did the Australian Aboriginal nations sign on to the Berne Convention? That's, the copyright convention that allows you to make 11% changes to things like that without breaching copyright. Are they signatories to that convention?
Can I just say that with the pictures of the flag that after Osmed done a little bit of modifications on it, can I just say that that someone saw it, and I think they kind of pissed themselves a bit when they saw it, actually, and it resorted into them actually blocking me, just to so he doesn't have any more bladder accidents, because obviously I think I set them off sometimes.
Well, look at what you're drinking. That golden ale.
Yeah, that was perfect timing, mate.
Tim, do not turn me off beer. This is all I've got left.
It's 30 on, mate. You're on. Just so you know, you're on a live stream, Logan. So just go easy on the beers there, bro.
On the subject of flags,
This has been me since the start of a live stream.
There
you know what? You know what? We kind of noticed.
On the subject of flags, if you want a symbol of resistance here in Australia, especially in Victoria, to like the lockdown and just the rising totalitarianism, we've got the Eureka flag.
Yeah,
that appeals across the board to a lot of people, and people know what it means. It means a spirit of rebellion. If you want a symbol to rally people around, use the Eureka flag.
I reckon that's a good idea. Actually,
that's a great idea.
It is basically our rebellion flag when you think of it, because over in states they obviously have the Confederate battle flag. That's actually a battle flag. It's not the actual Confederate flag. That's just what they had in war, right? So over there they have that. Over here we have the Eureka flag. So how ironic is it that the one state that had the Eureka stockade, that rebelled against the redcoats and all these laws that were coming out about mining for gold and that, is the one state that actually goes more totalitarian than any other state.
I think it's the state they worked hardest to subvert. That's an excellent point, Logan. Yeah.
Because basically the 1652 penalty infringement notice for disobeying the chief health officer, that's sort of the modern day equivalent of that outrageous mining tax. What was it? 30 quid a month?
Yeah, and it's even more outrageous when you account for what they've been doing to us with inflation all this time. Like when people start to realize that we are far more slaves to the global financial system than any slaves of the past ever were to any oppressive invading government. When people start to realize that, and they will when they get uncomfortable and hungry and when things stop working and the economy tanks, then they're going to want a flag to rally behind. And that's a perfectly good one.
There's also the red insignia flag, which is the citizens' flag of Australia, civilians' flag.
I find it interesting that that group actually used that on at the shrine. Like it's funny. Like I was referring to them as normie. I was referring to them as normies, and somebody in the XYZ comments like pointed out, like it kind of indicates that they are kind of red pilled to use that.
I've got behind me the Australian flag and the Eureka flag. I do intend to add a red insignia flag to that. We lost Logan for a moment. Maybe he's got to empty out all those beers.
Yeah, I hope he mutes himself as well.
Yeah. Better in the bathroom than on the stream.
Yeah, and take the microphone off if you're going to do a stream while you're on a stream.
Boom, boom.
Yeah,
because
we got anything else on the agenda there, Tim?
Oh well, I guess it's open. Open topics for the end of the show.
Sorry about that. I just had to someone called me and that
breaks.
Also, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my friends. I'd like to give a shout out actually to Australian Meditations for all the work that he does, keeping Australian culture alive. Thank you.
So if you want to ask us a question on entropy, or if you've got a super chat in mind, now's the perfect time to send one through.
We need a crickets sound effect at that point. Line that up for next time. Or a tumbleweed to just go across the screen.
Peter Grace is in the chat, guys. It's not the real one, obviously, but he's in the chat. So can I ask everyone in the chat, just be nice, because we don't want Peter Grace having any accidents. He's running out of diapers.
Well, there's plenty of they've taken all the quantity restrictions off at the supermarket now for toiletries and all that other stuff now, so you can buy as much as you want.
He was the one that was doing all the panic buying of all the toiletries. It was just him going around to every Coles and Woolworths you could find.
Why does every Uncuckable show final segment end up being about this guy? I'm so baffled.
Because
it actually might
we want to make him feel loved, because I don't think he has anyone around him to make him feel loved and all that kind of stuff. So
I actually want to hear a serious comment from Dave.
Are you okay? So,
yeah, Dave's got
Yeah, my serious comment is I think we're done.
Yeah, I think so too. I think when we start talking about the he who shall not be named, it's over.
I know you have a strict policy, James, of not in any way feeding trolls.
Oh no, I feed them when I want to. I'm just so bored of that one.
Yes, it's certainly his past years. Well, his page doesn't exist anymore, but he's determined to be noticed by us. All right, thank you so much.
From now on, let's just not talk about him. To be honest, let's just, because then he'll be wanting our attention even more. So from now on, no more Peter Grace chat.
Abstinence.
Yeah.
Hold it in. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, James, for coming on again. Looking forward to RRTV. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't say relaunch, but rebirth.
Rebirth. Yeah, or resurrection perhaps. But
resurrection.
Definitely going to be a different flavor. I'm excited about it too. And yeah, thanks for having me as ever, Tim, and Dave, Logan. Great to hang with you guys tonight.
Absolute pleasure, James.
And of course, you can see me on Trad Tasman Talk tomorrow night with Dewey De Boer, 6 p.m. Melbourne time on the Unshackled YouTube channel. We apparently, according to Dewey, we will know if the Auckland lockdown will end when it's scheduled to, or be extended again, because Jacinda Ardern, she delayed the election by 4 weeks to October 17th. And even though Donald Trump was called an autocrat for suggesting that the US election should be delayed until more people can vote in person, because mail-in ballots, it's a largely untested electoral format in the majority of states. And he tweeted last night, if you can protest in person, you can vote in person.
Can I just apologise for all my burping, please?
Maybe just don't do it next time, mate.
Yeah. And we have got, I know we just said we wouldn't mention him, but there is another super chat from he who shall not be named, who said
It's Voldemort, isn't it?
Yeah,
We're talking
yeah.
about Voldemort.
Well, looks worse than Voldemort. His appearance is worse than Voldemort's.
Look, I'll be slightly happier if you guys just start referring to him as Voldemort.
Voldemort.
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
Voldemort's
yes.
cool.
Yeah, Beetlejuice.
But we can't call him Voldemort. Voldemort actually wants like purity of blood for the magician kind. So you
actually read the Harry Potter books.
Bro, did you just red pill me on Harry Potter?
Well, have you read the Harry Potter books, James?
I'm halfway through reading the third one. Sorry, to my son.
Okay, so yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I haven't.
Yeah, like she's basically like painted all white nationalists as evil wizards. Yeah.
Imagine my shock.
Yeah,
all right, guys, I'm gonna jump out.
Yeah.
I'll catch you next time.
All right.
Cool. Cheerio, James.
Yeah.
Cheers.
And this final super chat is Richard shagged my wife. Okay. All right. Good night, everybody. And also, there'll be a special Wilms Front Saturday edition for the Northern Territory election, where, of course, the Territory borders, they're the key election issue. That starts at 8 p.m. Melbourne time. That'll be on the Wilms Front and Unshackled YouTube channels, and hopefully D-Live as well. All right. Good night, everybody.
Cheers.
Good night. Take it easy. Bye.
Thanks.
The Uncuckables.